It is an island with a troubled destiny, constantly at the mercy of its powerful neighbours. And it is an island that has long tried to forge its way to democracy. This, the island of Taiwan. Its most recent path was set just after the end of the Second World War. Japan handed it over to China, governed at the time by Chiang Kai-shek's Chinese Nationalist Party, the Kuomintang. But in 1947, the Chinese troops who landed on the island met with rioting from the local population as living conditions deteriorated. Repression turned to massacre, and so began the White Terror period, which lasted for 40 years. Things got even tougher in 1949 when Kuomintang was driven out of China by the communists and Chiang Kai-shek retreated to Taiwan, where he established the Republic of China, becoming president for life. Under his dictatorship, the political rights of the Taiwanese people severely repressed and several thousand accused of being political opponents were executed, tens of thousands imprisoned. It wasn't until 1987 that martial law was lifted and Taiwan began its march towards democracy. But the country grappling with how to rehabilitate victims and how to judge anyone deemed responsible for what happened. In 2016, the Taiwanese president, Ing-wen, announcing that she would finally unveil the truth. But the importance of the process has come up against many hurdles. The Kuomintang is still one of the main political parties on the island. Many archives have disappeared, notably with the dissolution of the secret police. And dictatorship remains a taboo subject for many Taiwanese families. Lucie Barbazanges revisits the White Terror of Taiwan for France 24.
A rugged island with a hostile climate, Green Island. At the foot of its mountains, Oasis Villa, a misnomer for the prison built during the White Terror.
Sometimes, in the middle of the night, they brought people and beat them. It was inhuman.
In these jails, thousands of political prisoners were incarcerated during Chiang Kai-shek's dictatorship. 81-year-old Huang Guilin was one of them. With his son Sean, he returns to retrace his past. The first time he set foot on these shores was in 1972. It's still a painful memory.
It was very, very sad. Instead of bringing us here with dignity, they tied us up, handcuffed us. At the time, we wondered if they were going to throw us into the sea.
The reason for his imprisonment? Subversion against the government. He was also accused of having links with communists, something he's always denied. Locked in this cell, he slept on the floor in unsanitary conditions.
We had to shower, wash our clothes, and even relieve ourselves here.
He lost 9 years of his youth in prison, 3 here. Along with the other inmates, Huang had to attend patriotism classes. No reading, no communication with the outside world. They were only permitted to hold a pen to write confessions, often obtained under torture.
They tried to pull out our fingernails with needles, and they wouldn't let us sleep. They would beat us until they got a forced confession.
To this day, he still grinds his teeth loudly at night. It makes a lot of noise. You can tell he's still under duress. Imagining that something like this has happened to someone you know, someone close to you, someone you love, it makes me very sad.
Even 50 years on, returning to this island is an ordeal. 9,000 names are engraved on this memorial, his own, and those of his friends who disappeared.
My heart aches for him. There are times when I also feel angry, knowing what this government has done to him.
Those who condemned me are probably already dead. So to forgive or not is not the question. That's for history to judge.
During 40 years of white terror, how many victims were like Huang Ruilin? According to estimates, tens of thousands were imprisoned or executed. Investigations are still ongoing. Precious documents are stored at the National Archives in Taipei, which help shed light on history. Our team was granted exclusive access to the facility.
Access to this room is restricted to specific individuals. It's monitored 24 hours a day. All data is transmitted in real time to the central control room, where a security guard is on constant duty.
Stringent measures for irreplaceable documents, like this order to shoot prisoners, written in red pencil by Chiang Kai-shek. Evidence that allows us to retrace the history of the victims.
This is a file from the Police Bureau of the Ministry of the Interior. It concerns a case from 1950. It was about a high school principal who was convicted of treason and sentenced to death.
As soon as she came to power in 2016, President Ing-wen promised to speed up transitional justice, a process to reconcile society with its authoritarian past. Thousands of political records have been declassified, restored, and analyzed, resulting in the exoneration of several thousand unjustly convicted victims in 6 years. 7,600 cases closed.
Even if we give them substantial reparations, it's not enough from the point of view of the victims' trauma. What they need the most is the truth. If the memory of this period of history is neglected, then the specter of authoritarianism and dictatorship will return. Transitional justice means promising that they will never return to power.
Transitional justice also means psychological support for victims and their descendants. After his trip to Green Island with his father, this is Sean Huang's second therapy session. Peng Zhenyu specializes in the treatment of victims of the White Terror.
What made you want to find out more about your father?
If I don't make the effort to understand him, who will? I do it because we're family.
According to a study conducted by this researcher, 10 to 25% of the children of victims suffer psychological after effects.
You were born in 1984, 3 years before martial law was lifted. At that time, did you notice that your father was still under surveillance at home?
Yes, I remember. I have this memory of once or twice people coming in yellow uniforms. I must have been barely in elementary school.
It was to tell your father the state is keeping an eye on you, to keep him in a state of fear.
This climate of surveillance and fear lasted long after martial law. The White Terror remained taboo for a long time and is still in some families.
There's a lot of work to be done to explain to families that the job of transitional justice is not to retry their parents or political prisoners. No, this time it's up to the state to apologize to the victims.
excuses auprès des victimes.
Today, the White Terror is the historical battle dividing Taiwanese society. Recognition of the victims is progressing, but the question of responsibility remains unresolved. Can there be forgiveness when no mastermind has formally been named or judged? Does accountability lie with the military, the Kuomintang single party, or the dictator himself? 40 years of Chiang Kai-shek's personality cult have left their mark, like this memorial erected to his glory in the middle of Taipei, the capital. Victims and their relatives regularly demonstrate here. They demand the demolition of this monument, the most visited by foreign tourists in Taipei. This activist is well known to Taiwanese police.
So we're here to see this ridiculous statue, right?
He's thrown red ink and eggs at this bronze statue of the dictator on 7 occasions. He's even forbidden from entering the memorial. But today, in the presence of our camera, he wants to get his message out.
He was a prolific murderer. Today, Taiwan is known as a free country with human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And we still tolerate such a statue? He's like Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong.
Arrested several times and fined 150 euros, he refuses to pay up or keep quiet. Since the 2000s, hundreds of sculptures of Chiang Kai-shek are stored in this park. Their number increased in 2017 when a law imposed the removal of all symbols of authoritarianism. Yet there are still 930 statues, street names, and paintings of the nationalist leader. For Chili Chen, Taiwan must turn the page on its authoritarian past.
During the White Terror, we don't even know how many Taiwanese died. So how can people think that Chiang Kai-shek made a positive contribution to Taiwan's history? The Taiwanese have had several presidents. They've all done good things and bad things. So should we be creating memorials for all these presidents and bow down before them?
Chiang Kai-shek, dictator or hero? The leader of the Nationalist Party established the Republic of China in Taiwan in 1949. His party, the Kuomintang, is still one of the archipelago's leading political movements. Here, members admire the former leader and understand his decisions.
Most of the people were very sensitive about the communist infiltration. And that's why a martial law would give the government extra power to ensure national security. We have some black spot.
For this Kuomintang leader, the White Terror is a chapter of history that needs to be put in perspective.
Martial law, as I grow up, there were some inconvenience. For instance, we cannot have, disco dance party after midnight. Was that a terror? Maybe, may not be. The White Terror was a short period of a long history of KMT. And the KMT had apologized.
While the story of those 40 years is still divisive, education about the White Terror is crucial for the Taiwanese government. Faced with Beijing's threat to invade the archipelago, Taipei wants to make society aware of its authoritarian past. In this high school, the White Terror is taught by a political prisoner. Lu Yu spent 15 years in prison when he was barely older than his students.
For you, this period of history may be meaningless. But as a Taiwanese person, you need to know about it. Because it's our history. We have the right to know, so we must know.
At just 16, these high school girls want to preserve their freedoms.
We should be grateful for the rights and freedom we have today. It's thanks to their struggles. They sacrifice themselves, and we benefit from it now.
Young people don't pay attention to politics. But I think it's not a good thing. I think everyone needs to pay attention to politics so that democracy isn't dominated by one party or doesn't become an authoritarian system.
37 years after the end of martial law, Taiwan has proven its resilience. After a century of oppression, the archipelago's rapid democratization places it today among the top 10 democracies in the world.
Lucie Barbazanges revisiting the White Terror of Taiwan for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Don't forget you can catch it and the previous editions as well on our website at france24.com. More news coming up very shortly. Thanks for watching.